From the heartland of America, focused on God, family, and country, the mouthpiece of the Midwest. This is Dale Carter's America.
We're back in the podcast studio in Raytown, where the news is hitting us fast and furious. And parts of this podcast, as we record it today, may be dated by the time it's posted, but that's okay. A lot of the history that we're going to go through will not be dated because that's going to be the same no matter what's going on here. I'm Dale Carter. He's Kurt Wheeler, and we ask you to help us spread the word on the podcast. And there's so many ways you can help us do that. Kurt, what are a few?
Absolutely. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or Rumble for the video podcast. Drop a like, leave a comment. Share it with your friends. It all helps greatly with the algorithm, so we do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Make sure that you check out the audio only. You know, if you're driving or you're at work, you can watch YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. And then make sure to follow us on Facebook as well and join in the conversation.
I saw a report on podcasting and inside radio that I thought was really interesting. It's that most people are still doing audio only, but the biggest growth area is video.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are consuming podcasts while they're at work. And if they're watching the video, they have it minimized on their desktop. And they're monitoring what's going on there. And if something catches their fancy, like a fun video that we might show, they just expand the screen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, I know with iPhone, you can minimize it, you know, a lot. I do that a lot, but
yeah. So it's a growing area, and we are glad that you've made us part of what you consume, and we love to hear from you too. That's why I post a lot of stuff on our Facebook page, and the interaction there is always interesting. Let's just put it that way. It's interesting. We want to thank Bob Watson for jumping in here, being one of our main sponsors on the podcast. He's been a State Farm agent for 51 years. He's anchored there at 7th and Main in Blue Springs, but that's not exactly the end of the story because he's licensed in Missouri and Kansas. You can reach him and his fine folks in the office there at 816-229-7878 for auto, home, life. Bundle your home and car insurance and save even more. And the true test of your insurance is when you need to use it. Right? It's not necessarily the 800 number you called with somebody who English might be their fourth language, and maybe you got a really, really good cut rate deal, but when you need it, they're not there. Bob and his team are always there, and they've got competitive rates through State Farm. Bob Watson, State Farm agent, thank you so much for being part of our podcast here.
Tremendous people.
So today I'm wearing this shirt, and if you're watching on the video, you see this, and you're wondering, Dale, why are you wearing a long sleeve shirt when it's 90 freaking degrees? Well, I ordered this shirt back in April, and then I forgot about it. You know what the shirt is. It honors the late Graham Hoffman. He was the firefighter EMT who was killed. All this kid did, he was like 29 years old, right? They saw a woman bleeding on the side of the road, and of course they stopped their ambulance. They put her in the ambulance, were taking her to the hospital, and the woman came at Graham with a knife and stabbed him in the heart and killed him. So that's what you get for serving your community, Graham Hoffman. But these shirts were done by E2 Embroidery and Screen Printing on Topping. They tell me that the sale of the shirts from back in April raised nearly $400,000.
wow.
And to tell you what kind of a guy Graham Hoffman, or his family, I should say, moving forward. He didn't have a wife or kids, so he had parents, he had a brother and a sister. And what they've done with this money is they've established a scholarship fund for those who want to become EMTs because they still believe in the service of it, that this is such a weird one-off thing. Yet, you know, now EMTs, do they need to wear Kevlar? Do we need to start patting people down before we put them in an ambulance? I guess we do. So that's why I'm wearing this shirt. I don't know if they have more that you can just buy. I remember I ordered it in April, and there were many versions you could get. Short sleeve. I think there was a hoodie involved too. A hat too. Yeah. E2 Embroidery and Screen Printing. Do we have a contact info for them?
I had the link up
okay,
earlier.
Cool.
Yeah. While you were talking.
So, that's something, if you still want to support that, that's a great thing. Today is also Juneteenth. This was the day that Joe Biden turned into a federal holiday. I read the legislation on this as well, co-sponsored by Sheila Jackson Lee. I think she's since passed away. Mm-hmm. But it was also tied to reparations. So that should tell you everything you need to know. And Juneteenth was the day, June 19th, 1865. They didn't have the internet, didn't even have telephones back then, that the final enslaved black people got the news that they were free down in South Texas. So that becomes a holiday. It's Juneteenth. And if you have the day off, which we don't in the radio business, the banks are closed, stock market's down, there won't be any mail delivery. Thank Joe Biden, or at least whoever signed the auto pen, that you get this day off. We celebrated Juneteenth and Pride Month this morning on KFKF. That may shock you, Kurt.
Yeah. Well, here's the proclamation. You remember this from last year from Biden?
I don't.
And I'm sure he wrote every single word of this
that's
very long proclamation and signed it in his own handwriting.
Is that what the auto pen looks like? Just a printed name?
Yeah, just Times New Roman.
Yeah. Okay. So we did celebrate Juneteenth and Pride Month this morning. I thought I could combine the two things in a way that only would be heard on KFKF, and that was taking our 3 throwbacks on the 40s and making them Charlie Pride songs.
That's right.
Charlie,
I remember you
was,
mentioning that.
Yeah, I did. Charlie was obviously black, and an interesting guy. I got to meet him, and I had several interviews with him. What an incredible American story Charlie Pride was. He broke through, think about this, he broke through in country radio in 1967. Think about what was going on in this country in 1967. And there was no internet, so nobody knew what anybody looked like, right? Because records were all black vinyl with a label in the middle. So Charlie shows up at a concert, and the crowd goes, oh. But they loved the guy. They loved his music, and he had an incredible career. He was inducted into the Country Hall of Fame in 2020, and then sadly he died from COVID. But he knew at the end that he had been inducted into the Hall of Fame. But I enjoyed having him on my show over the years just for the stories he would tell about playing for LBJ on Air Force One,
Nice.
And the things he got to do. He was also a baseball player.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he trained every year with the Texas Rangers. Just an incredible American story. And when you think of, when the left thinks of country radio and country music listeners, they think a bunch of old white rednecks, right? That's kind of like how they've stereotyped us.
Yeah.
Yet we're the format that embraced Charlie Pride, and it opened the door for other people who wanted to sing country music. Darius Rucker to this day, Kane Brown. We also can smell out a fake, a phony, and a fraud. And that's where I'd put Beyonce, because that's not going to happen.
What about Shabuzi?
I'm not sold, okay? Yeah. But now I have responsibility for 2 radio stations, right? And Q104 is the other station I have responsibility for now. And I will say that the metrics I look at, I finally moved Shabuzi up into a daytime rotation on that station.
So we love Shabuzi is the is the verdict.
If you're not watching on the podcast, you just missed an incredible eye roll from me. It happens that way. So that's the top of the thing here. We're going to get into what's going on with Iran and Israel, the No Kings versus the 250th celebration of the United States Army. We haven't done this in a while. Do we have the thing for later in the deal?
Oh, I got to pull that up.
We do have it though, right?
Yeah, we have
We're going to have a Midwest GI Full of Shit Award. We haven't done this in a while, but we got a really good one for you. And then an old friend of the podcast turns up with a big new job in the federal government. So we're going to have fun with all of that stuff coming up here. But first, if you're not having fun, it may be because a deer ran out in front of you. Man, the deer are active. They were running all around my neighborhood this morning when I left home. You hit a deer, you hit anything. It's going to ruin your entire day. And if your car is salvageable at all, the wrecker will ask you a question. Where are we taking this car? You just say Dale. If you watch Dale Carter's America, you listen to Dale Carter's America, it ought to be a name that you know. This is a different Dale. It's Dale Reynolds at Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs, the original Dale's Collision Repair Shop. He is in Blue Springs on 40 Highway, but that is not the conclusion of that story either. 37 years he's been fixing cars all over the Kansas City Metro. In fact, folks come from as far away as Topeka, St. Joe, Lawrence. They know when the repairs need to be done right, they got to be at Dale's Body Shop in Blue Springs. things. It's not some big corporate entity. Dale Reynolds is a longtime resident, a dear friend of mine, and he will take care of you. That's why their slogan is this: taking care of customers, taking care of you. That's Dale's Body Shop, the original, the one and only. Another guy I didn't know before we did the podcast was Kirk Doris. But the more I get to talk to him, as I'm turning 62 in September, that's a guy I'm going to keep on speed dial, because his company is Medicare Simplified KC. If you are turning 65 or somebody in your family is, he's the guy you need to be talking to, because Medicare's coming at you fast. And there's all kinds of changes all the time with Medicare, depending on who's in the White House, depending on which party has a majority in the House or the Senate. There's always changes to Medicare, which plan, which part. These are things you need the answers to, and Kirk Doris has them. He'll come to you, you go to him. Here's a couple of contact pieces for Kirk. It is 816-701-6661. And on the web at MedicareSimplifiedKC.com. Remember his name, Kirk Doris. They have offices on Nolan Road in Independence, or like I said, he'll come to you and he'll explain it all in a way that will make sense, and you'll come away with a plan for yourself, because everyone's has a different story. How much money do you have? What's your work situation? It all factors in to how and when you take Medicare, and Kirk will walk you through all of those steps. Okay. Deep breath as we move forward here, talking about what's going on in the Middle East. And I told you there'd be some historical context to this. And what I put in the notes is not the end of the historical context, as someone reminded me today. But I would say our most recent history with Iran probably dates back to 1979. If you remember, November of 1979, the Shah of Iran was deposed. The clerics took over. It became a theocracy instead of, I guess, probably what was a dictatorship under the Shah of Iran. But he was our guy, right? He was a friendly guy. Somebody reminded me today you should really reset that history to 1953, when we toppled the government of Iran and installed the Shah. So, okay, America doesn't always have clean hands in these things. So November of 1979, our embassy is overrun. Hostages are taken. They are paraded on television. It showed how weak Jimmy Carter was, because he couldn't do anything. And he tried something. There was the rescue attempt. This is way before your time.
Yeah.
But that they tried to rescue. They tried to go get him, and it failed in the desert, and it made our military look really, really weak. And so Jimmy Carter gave up, didn't do anything. But the clerics were afraid of Ronald Reagan. They were terrified of Ronald Reagan. That's why those hostages were all released on January 20th, 1981, because they were afraid of what Ronald Reagan was going to do to them. So that takes us through a lot of different skirmishes we've had with Iran, and basically you've had the same form of government. It went from the Ayatollah Khomeini to whatever the Ayatollah's name is now. There have been two of them. I think he's in his 80s, right?
He's pretty old, yeah.
Yeah. So it's gone through those two guys, and the entire time, and you got to make a distinction between the people who are running that country and the rest of the population. The rest of the population are incredible people. I mean, Persia is basically the cradle of civilization, right? Am I wrong on that?
It has been historically. They've definitely had some pretty strong periods.
And the advances that they had in science and math and all that, I mean, it's really smart, good people there. But these clerics have the country under their thumb. We're going to talk about the No Kings rally. Can you imagine a No Kings rally in Tehran? What would happen to those people?
I don't know.
Yeah, they'd probably be killed. What if you were gay in Iran? They throw those people off of tall buildings. Women, think about how it was in the 5th century, because that's where the Iranian leadership wants to take you back to. And death to America, they've been saying that forever. Death to America, death to America. So they are not our friends, historically. And then if you take what happened in Israel on October 7th of last year, and then what's the old adage? Follow the money. If you follow the money, how did the Houthis, the Hamas, and Hezbollah get the money to attack Israel? It came from Iran. There's no other There's no other body out there that's funding them. They're getting their money there. And if you followed the money trail back even further, it goes back to Joe Biden and this Iran nuclear deal, right? We gave them their money back. And Biden tried to put strings on it. And he tried to say, this is just going to be used for humanitarian. You're going to use this on your people, right? And the Ayatollah basically said, it's our money. We're going to use it however we want. Fast forward to October 7th, and the Israeli version of 9/11 happened on October 7th. They were attacked. Thousands were killed. A surprise attack. And Benjamin Netanyahu is basically, I'm done with this, and I'm going to do whatever we can to defend Israel. It started with Gaza, and I think on October 7th or maybe October 8th, he made the decision that they were going to take out Iran's nuclear capability. You know, how far along is Iran with a nuclear bomb? I have no idea. They might have 9 in that mountain. They might not have any. It could be going back to like Saddam Hussein, and we were sold a bill of goods back then that he had uranium and yada, yada, yada. We were going to wake up to smoking towers in the United States. We'll get to that in a second. So what's going on with their nuclear program? I don't know. The U.S. has tried to slow down the nuclear program over the years, and what might they do with it if they do develop it? There is no question in my mind, based on how Iran feels about Israel historically, that if they develop a nuclear weapon, they will use it. No question in my mind. So, again, Israel made this decision after Iran funded the Hamas attack of October 7th, just a matter of time. And I think what happened here, and a lot of it's speculation. That's all we can do is speculate at this point. I think Trump finally gave him the green light. He negotiated with Iran for 60 days, and on day 61, he said, you people don't want to negotiate, and he told Netanyahu, do what you got to do. What would we do? That's a question we should ask ourselves. But then we should also remember the lessons of Afghanistan and Iraq. That should play a factor here, because if we do anything, and that's Donald Trump's decision, if we do anything, I don't think it should result in one boot on the ground in the country of Iran. We went down that slippery slope in Afghanistan and Iraq. We have to ask the question is, what is America's interest here? Okay. Is it in our interest, in our foreign policy interests, to have a nuclear armed Iran with the people who are running it now? And I don't think you'd get a lot of agreement that there is an American interest in them being nuclear armed. Okay. So what do we do from a foreign policy perspective if the Iranians send one of these missiles into an American base that's in the region? What's our reaction going to be to that? We've told them don't do it, but don't was the one word foreign policy that Joe Biden had and Kamala Harris had. And if you go back even further, Barack Obama had his red line in Syria that they kept going across, and there were no consequences. So it's a tough decision. And by the time you hear this podcast, it may have already been made. This is probably, I read somewhere that this is the biggest decision in Donald Trump's life. What will he do, and what will the consequences be down the road? I don't know. Is it on the table to drop some bunker busters on this mountain and disrupt their nuclear capabilities and set them back 20 years, 25 years? I don't know. It's possible. Give bunker busters to the Israelis and let them do it? I don't know. We'll see. And the Senate and the House are weighing in from both parties now, Republicans and Democrats, and they want some debate in the Congress on authorizing action moving forward in Iran. They did that with Iraq, you may recall. Even Hillary Clinton voted with the Republicans to authorize force in Iraq. Now, everybody had buyer's remorse out of that, right? Because of the intelligence.
Yeah.
Can you trust the intelligence? And Donald Trump doesn't want to do this. At his core, he doesn't want to do this, and you know it, right? He wants to make a deal. I read The Art of the Deal. He said, the only reason I get up every day is to make a deal. He wants to make a deal. He's not a warmonger. There are warmongers around him, but he's not a warmonger. He'd like this to all go away and cut deals on trade everywhere, and all of us go skipping down the road happily together. So if we do anything militarily in Iran, you have to know that this was the very last, the very last thing on his list. I just paused because I saw the same thing you saw. We have a wasp in here. Is it one or two?
It's one. You can keep going.
I don't know. Okay. So, it's going to be the last thing that he wants to do. So we do have something that came out of the Vietnam War. I'm watching Kurt now, and we're going to see if he can kill it or just piss it off and it come down and sting me. I think there might be two of them up there. Yeah. I feel like this is like an episode of Wild Kingdom all of a sudden, and I'm Marlon Perkins safely in the studio. And Kurt is Jim Fowler, and he is wrestling with the snake, or in this case, the wasp. We're probably going to get in trouble if you kill that wasp. Oh, I think you just made it mad. Did you get it? All right. Well, just keep going. Nothing like that to take me off track here. So I wanted to look up the War Powers Act because that came out during the Vietnam War and find out exactly what the law is, because we have... Got it. He got it. He stepped on it. Step on it again. It's still moving. Keep stepping. You want me to step on it? I'm fatter than you. Okay, you got it. Just rub it into the carpet. Because we've had presidents who have taken us into military conflicts without Congress, even though the Constitution's pretty clear on it. Congress has the ability to declare war, and then the president executes the war plan that's been approved by Congress. We've bastardized that so many different ways from Sunday that it's hard to recognize it. But I know Bill Clinton did not get permission to start bombing Bosnia back in the 1990s. Didn't happen. Bush got authorization to go into Iraq for sure, maybe Afghanistan after 9/11, I don't know. But the War Powers Act, if you pull that up, or the War Powers Resolution, and it's going to be small print, so you're going to have to help me with that. But there are certain benchmarks the president has to make. He can authorize a strike, but then there are certain days with when he has to report back to Congress.
There's a lot of words here, so... a lot of it seems specific to Iraq. It says, report on responsible redeployment of United States Armed Forces from Iraq.
Well, that's not the War Powers Act then. The War Powers Act was back in the 1970s as a result of President Lyndon Johnson getting us into Vietnam and then just doubling down because Lyndon Johnson, basically a product of the World War II generation, he said, I don't want to be the first president to lose a war.
How about just a summary from history.com?
There we go. The War Powers Act.
The War Powers Act is a congressional resolution designed to limit the U.S. president's ability to initiate or escalate military actions abroad. Among other restrictions, the law requires that the presidents notify Congress after deploying the armed forces and limits how long units can remain engaged without congressional approval. Enacted in 1973 with the goal of avoiding another lengthy conflict such as the Vietnam War, its effectiveness has been repeatedly questioned throughout its history, and several presidents have been accused of failing to comply with its regulations.
Yeah. Right, because, again, presidents try and take as much power as they can. It's been that yin and yang for the 250 years of our republic.
And what's Congress going to do?
Exactly.
What are they going to do? They're going to go to Afghanistan and get the troops themselves.
Yeah. Well, the Constitution says, that the Congress declares war and the president executes the war plan. So I guess what Congress could do is go to the Supreme Court. If there was a tussle like that, that's why the Constitution is set up the way it is. So with all of this that I have said and spewed forth, I do want to ask you one question. What do you think Trump will do?
I'm not sure. You brought up a good point, which is that he doesn't want to go to war, but it's like he doesn't really have a choice. And it kind of brings into question who's really in control here, because it seems like, it's kind of already happening. Israel is bombing Iran using our money and our weapons. So we're going to get blamed for it already. I mean, we're already involved, whether we like it or not. Yeah. So, he can say that he doesn't want to get involved, and like, that's fine. But they went without us and bombed the country. So we're in it, So I don't know. I mean, is he going to... I would certainly, I'm on the opposite side of the issue. I would not recommend any military action. I don't want to get involved in another Middle Eastern war or worse.
I don't think anybody does. I don't think anybody wants to put boots on the ground.
Yeah, but it's not just boots on the ground. It's bombs, drones, missiles. I mean, everything is an escalation. It's already escalating, and it's going to continue to escalate. Then you talk about Iran, is not Somalia. Iran is not Afghanistan. They're a big country with a big, powerful government. They're allied with Russia. They're allied with China. And then you start talking about, more of a true global conflict with all of these different players coming into play. So it's just bad news all around, in my opinion.
Here's a way that I think it could be good news in the long run. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that what the decision is he's going to send a plane over there with bunker busters. They're going to annihilate the nuclear program that Iran has, and then Iran is no longer a threat. Then Trump can get back to doing what he wants to do. Think about what he did in the first term, the Abraham Accords. He got Israel's neighbors talking to him, right? And a lot of them are. I mean, they're talking to each other, which is good. And they're establishing relations. And it's not, their foreign policy is the death of Israel, the destruction of Israel. So maybe they get further down that line. And I got to tell you, Russia says that Iran has not asked them for help. I don't think that call would go very well. Russia's up to their eyes with Ukraine right now. How are they going to help? Does China want to help? Iran is their number one source of oil, but we're their number one retail market. So there's some confusion there as well. So maybe the win here is to do something limited. Don't go in there and try and do a change of government like we did in Afghanistan and Iraq. Not everybody is going to be.
And Libya.
Exactly. That's not our role. And I think if history has taught us anything else, we can't do that. We've failed at it everywhere we've tried.
And people wonder, I mean, this is going to sound bad. This is going to sound like I'm taking the side of the Iranians, which I'm not. But people wonder why they all hate us. And it's like we've been bombing all of their countries for 50 years. Like, okay, we want to negotiate. We want to, and I'm not saying that you're saying this, of course, but we want to negotiate. We want peace. So let's bomb the crap out of them, and then maybe they'll come to the table. Like, that's not how it works. It's just an escalation, and we've bombed the entire region. Israel is bombing the entire region. It's similar to Iraq in the sense that Israel wants control over the oil reserves, and they want control over the shipping lanes. So they're going to get it. They're going to get regime change in Iran, and then they're going to get control over, all of the shipping and all of the oil, and that's their goal, in my opinion, out of this. The nuclear weapons is just a pretext. Israel has been saying, Netanyahu specifically has been saying that Iran is like weeks away from a nuclear bomb since the 90s. You can look it up. He's been saying the same thing since the 90s in front of Congress. He's been telling us to bomb them since the 90s. So now he's finally getting what he wants.
Okay. Well, we'll see how this all plays out. It's going to be very interesting. And like I said, by the time this thing posts, maybe something will have been done. And then again, maybe not. Donald Trump has pulled a rabbit out of a hat on other occasions. And, to your point about who's in control, I don't think there's any question about that. I think whatever happens, it's going to be Donald Trump's decision. And we're not going to have to worry about who used an auto pen to sign off on it.
I mean, that is true, but it's also true that Israel bombed Iran. There's conflicting reports on this. Initially, it was said that Trump didn't know about it, or Trump was trying to get negotiations, and then it was said that Trump did know about it and he was playing 4D chess, just to fake them into it or whatever.
Right.
But regardless, they bombed Iran using our money and our weapons. So, like, I mean, it's still the point exists. Like we're not, our hands are not clean in this from the beginning.
Well, yeah, our hands aren't always clean in these things for sure. But, a slight correction here, and I looked this up just to make sure I was on solid ground. We do give aid to Israel, and we require them to spend 75% of it with our arms makers. Did you know that?
Okay, so we're giving them money and weapons, and then the money that we give them has to be spent on more of our weapons.
I think we're giving them weapons. I think we're giving them aid and then requiring them to spend it with companies in the United States, which helps our economy.
Yeah, I guess, but they're still using our missiles and our weapons, right?
All right. Well, we know where you stand. Where I stand is I'm very conflicted on this, and I hope and I pray that Donald Trump makes the right decision, because I think the world is, that's why I say this is the most important decision he's probably ever made in his life.
Yeah.
The world is kind of hinging on what comes out of this.
Yeah.
And the reason we elected him is because we wanted him in the chair to make this decision. Yeah. We didn't want Kamala Harris in the chair making this decision. God knows what that would have looked like.
Yeah. And if I can just agree with you there, I mean, this is very significant, and I don't think people are taking it lightly, but this isn't Iraq, this isn't Afghanistan, this isn't Libya. This is on another level.
Yeah.
And this is, like you said, it's the most important decision he's going to make as president, and the implications are global, and you could even say in some sense they're prophetic and like even biblical, like this is like this is real stuff that we're talking about here. So let's not take it lightly.
Well, we know where Tucker Carlson stands. At least I think I do with this clip that I found. He had Senator Ted Cruz on his podcast, I guess.
Yeah.
And he went after him with both barrels.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population. At all? No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? What's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
what
predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country.
Republicans are.
Yeah. So I'm guessing Ted Cruz will never go on the Tucker Carlson podcast ever again.
He regrets that invite.
And you've seen us have guests on before, and I know you think, especially with people who don't agree with us necessarily, that I've gone kind of light on them. I think when you have a guest on your podcast, the objective is to get their take on the situation, not start attacking from moment number one.
Well,
with a series of gotcha questions.
I watched the whole thing, the whole Tucker Cruz interview, and I highly recommend it, because I think, with all honesty, I would come down much more on the side of Tucker Carlson just overall throughout the interview, but I think it is a really good representation of both kind of sides of the debate. And it starts out very amicable. Like, they talk about other things, they're very friendly, and then it starts to get a little bit more heated as it gets into the Iran and Israel situation. And Cruz was not innocent in that either. If you watch the entire thing, I mean, he's making suggestions and implications that Tucker is like an anti-Semite and he's obsessed with Israel and all this stuff, and so that was, pretty crappy as well. But it's definitely an interesting watch, and I would recommend it.
Okay. So moving forward, we can get off this topic now and tell you that, interest rates, we don't know where they're going right now. We know that the Fed did not lower interest rates. Donald Trump, not a fan of the Fed chairman. I think he's made that abundantly clear. He's got all kinds of names for that guy. But the name I'm going to give you, if you're in the market for a mortgage, is the guy who's going to get you the best possible deal that you can get and explain it all to you and get you the best deal. And I'm talking about my buddy Chad Taylor, the Red Carpet Lender. You can find him on the web at theredcarpetlender.com. He works with people every day. And it's not just about buying a house, but if you're going to buy a house, you ought to know how much house you can afford, so that when you go see our friend on the real estate side, you know exactly how much house that you can afford. And if you're thinking about this and you've heard the old wives' tale that there's a hard hit on your credit just for looking, Chad says there's no upfront hard credit hit to see if you can get approved for a home loan. He's going to waive waive lender fees for veterans as a thank you for your service. That saves you almost $3,000. Free appraisals for first-time home buyers, police and fire department employees, along with school district employees. There's a wide variety of loan programs to fit your needs and your budget. And again, it's not just about buying a house. Sometimes you want to use your mortgage to dig out of a hole that you're in. I've been there before too. You don't need 20% down. Most will go 0 to 5% down. Chad's licensed in Missouri and Kansas. And again, he'll come to you, you go to him. Work it out on his website. That is the first place you should go, theredcarpetlender.com. And then when you know how much house you can afford, then you go see our friend Michael Schroer. Michael's selling houses left and right. It's hard to keep up with all the property he's moving. He's a broker with RE/MAX Elite and Lee's Summit. He's on the phone there at 816-373-8400. His cell is 816-520-9342. You know, no matter where we are in the market cycle, you are where you are with your life, right? You know, if your kids have left the nest and they're in college or grown, and it's summertime, you start thinking about, where am I going to live? Okay? It's a great time to get with Michael Schroer and see what the inventory is. And now that you know what you can afford, because you talked to our buddy Chad, you're going to be in really good shape. Whether it's your first home, the bigger home, the smaller home, the dream home, piece of property you want to build on, Michael will help you get your house sold, and he'll find you your next home. Michael Schroer, RE/MAX Elite in Lee Summit, 816-373-8400. Good guy there who's going to help you out. Okay, so I think we can get back on the same page here. I think we're going to be all right, Kurt. I think no Kings versus the 250th celebration of the United States Army. Did you watch the Army celebration?
I did not, no.
We're going to get to that.
I saw some clips, and I have comments, but I'll save them for later.
We're going to have some clips, too. And I hate parades. I've been in, I don't know how many here in Kansas City.
You've been in too many. That's why you don't like them.
And even before that, I would never go. I mean, I went to see my son play in the Macy's parade in New York, because that was kind of cool. You know, to see, because my son's
like a
in
marching
the Macy's
band or something.
Yeah, he was in the high school marching band. They played the Macy's parade. That was kind of cool. All right, we'll get to the parade here in a little bit. Maybe we won't agree on everything here, but I think we can agree on this: the No Kings people. What did they accomplish? Is it like masturbation, where, you know, for one moment, you know, you get that and then you got to clean up the mess.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow, what a comparison.
That can't be the promo clip. By the way, I'm just telling you that right now.
That's not going to air on the radio.
The person who I think summed it up best, because I don't think they accomplished anything. We don't have a king. We didn't have a king before. We had a king a long time ago, and we'll talk about that. But Randy Weingarten, who's head of the most powerful teachers union, I hope to God she was wearing a sports bra in this clip.
Philly, you are the community to this president's chaos. And together, we build a future of opportunity and justice for all. Hope over fear, aspiration over anger, the promise of America for each and every American. That is what we are fighting for today.
Wow.
She has very Tim Walz energy. He's kind of floppy like that too, you know. He's always like, "Wow, I'm Tim Walz." You know,
is he wearing a sports bra?
I don't know.
Maybe he does need to. You know, out of all of this, I even heard from an old friend who will be nameless, who you may remember threatened to sue me over this podcast because I read our text exchange on the podcast.
You're giving away too much information.
I'm not going to mention her name. Yeah. She even sent me a text that night. This is the person who threatens to sue me, blocks me on Facebook, and unfriends me after being friends for 30 years. And basically, you want me to read what she sent me?
Oh boy, here we go.
I gotta see if I can find it real quick. I'm not mentioning any names though, because number one, I don't think she would have prevailed in court, but I just don't want to screw around with that. Let's see. We need like the Jeopardy music playing in the background while I'm scrolling to find it. There's probably a bit. Here we go. Okay. And she overstates the number. Quote, I had 11 million angry people join me today on the streets of this country. You thought I might need therapy for my anger. I guess a lot of us do.
So she's admitting that they all need therapy? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so. Well, I heard the number was 6 to 7 million.
I mean, it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. I get that.
Got to hand it to them. It's a lot of people.
But almost 80 million people voted for Donald Trump, so they got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that nobody who went to one of these things voted for Donald Trump.
Probably very few.
Yeah.
Probably very few.
So,
unless, you know, they were counter protesters or people out there interviewing people, you know, media figures, stuff like that.
It's a bunch of people who are pissed off that Donald Trump is president and he's doing exactly what we elected him to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I saw some pictures from the Kansas City one. It was a lot of the normal stuff, you know, the Handmaid's Tale outfits, the, you know, Trump's a fascist signs and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so they go down to the plaza or wherever they went in the country to do all this stuff, and they were peaceful. I'll give them that. There were some, I think Portland turned a little nasty. LA maybe still a little bit nasty. So they've done these things, and then it's over. Now what?
Right.
What did it accomplish? Again, they made a mess. It's just like masturbation. So there you go. Now, what they could be doing and what they should be doing, in my view, because we need a loyal opposition in this country to kind of balance things, right? When the Democrats have power, what did we do for 4 years? We bitched about what they were doing, and we said, here's what we need to do. They're not doing that part. They're just bitching about the fact that Donald Trump is there. They're not building toward anything in 2026 that's going to convince enough Americans to go vote for their policies. They don't have any policies. Their only policy is, we don't want a king. Well, guess what? Republicans agree with you. We don't want a king either. We don't have a king, right?
Well,
do you think we have a king?
We do have a king. His name is Jesus Christ.
Well, that's okay. And I've seen that a lot too. Again, I don't want to have a holy war. This is all the secular side. And actually, in point of fact, we solved the no kings thing back in 1776 when we told King George III that we were an independent nation. Okay? I knew that back to 1975, Kurt. It was the summer of 1975. I was 12 years old watching cartoons on ABC because unlike your generation, my generation only got cartoons one day a week.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Back when I was your age.
That's it. That's it. You want to call me out on that? Saturday mornings, we got cartoons. And there was this thing called Schoolhouse Rock. ABC put it together. I mean, it taught me English. I still remember to this day. Conjunction, junction, what's your function, right? Mm-hmm. It taught me about how a bill becomes a law. I'm just a bill. I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. I still remember that song. And in 1975, Schoolhouse Rock told us we don't have a king.
Rocking and a rolling, slishing and a splashing over the horizon. What can it be? The pilgrims sailed the sea to find a place to call their own. In their ship Mayflower, they hope to find a better home. They finally knocked on Plymouth Rock, and someone said, we're there. It may not look like home, but at this point I don't care. Oh, they were missing Mother England. They swore their loyalty until the very end. Anything you say, King, it's okay, King. You know it's kind of scary on your own. Gonna build a new land the way we planned. Could you help us run it till it's grown? They planted corn, you know, they built their houses one by one. And bit by bit they worked until the colonies were done. They looked around, yeah, up and down, and someone said, hooray! If the king could only see us now, he would be proud of us today. They knew that now they'd run their own land. But George III still vowed he'd rule them to the end. Anything I say, do it my way now. Anything I say, do it my way. Don't you get to feeling independent, 'cause I'm gonna force you to obey. He taxed their property, he didn't give them any choice. And back in England, he didn't give them any voice. That's called taxation without representation, and it's not fair. But when the colonies complained, the king said, I don't care. He even has the nerve to tax our cup of tea. To put it kindly, king, we really don't agree. Gonna show you how we feel. We're gonna dump this tea and turn this harbor into the biggest cup of tea in history. They wanted no more mothering land. They knew the time had come for them to take command. It's very clear you're being unfair, king. No matter what you say, we won't obey. Gonna hold a revolution now, king, and we're gonna run it all away with no more king.
We're gonna elect a president.
No more king. He's gonna do what the people want. No more king.
We're gonna run things our way.
No more king. Nobody's gonna tell us what to do. Rocking and a rolling, swishing and a splashing over the horizon. What can it be? Looks like it's going to be a free country.
All right. So there you go.
Wow.
ABC's Schoolhouse Rock from 1975.
How far we've fallen, man.
We don't have a king. We could have had a king. You know from history that George Washington, if he wanted to be king of America, he could have been king of America.
Yeah. Absolutely.
and
no, I'm just
he-
stuck on the Schoolhouse Rock thing. Like,
You like
it's
it?
so wholesome, you know. We don't have anything like that anymore.
Nothing like
it would be
that.
like, the colonists came over and slaughtered all the Indians. You know, it's like, oh man, we used to have a proper country.
Yeah. You know, the fact of the matter is, and getting back to the 250th celebration of the Army, we had an Army more than a year before we declared independence, right? That's what the parade in D.C. was all about. They spent $45 million. The bulk of that money came out of the recruiting budget for the United States Army, and the show was incredible. And the interest in joining the Army that came out of that, they couldn't have paid for that. They had some sponsors that jumped in there as well. I kind of wonder this. How much did the No Kings protests cost in terms of overtime paid to police officers, cleanup afterwards? You think it was more than $45 million?
I'd be curious to find out. That's an interesting question.
I'll bet it was. Okay. So in the parade, the 250th Army celebration was planned during Joe Biden's presidency. So would Kamala Harris have been there? And would they have cared? Of course not. This is all about Donald Trump. It was also Flag Day. Happened to be Trump's birthday. And that wasn't even mentioned until the end. The guy from the Army came up and presented Trump with a flag, and spontaneously the crowd started singing happy birthday to him.
Did you see his comment about putting the flags up at the White House?
I saw the poll. My God, that is
There's a funny clip I'm going to pull up after this. 'cause
Okay,
it's very
that's
funny.
the biggest flagpole I think I've ever seen. And it kind of makes me wonder, the next time there's a Democrat in the White House, will they take it down?
The biggest, most beautiful flagpole, right?
Yeah. So we have some highlights from the parade in case you missed it. I loved it because I'm a student of history. I love history. And the entire history of the United States Army was on display there, and it was narrated well. The music was wonderful. It was really something. It was 3 hours long. It was worth it.
Young Army had won the war and our freedom, the freedom we hold so dear. And 250 years later,
the unit routinely represents the U.S. Army and our nation in official ceremonies, major sporting events.
Parachute.
Variety of musical genres. Though their mission is primarily a musical one, the members were ordered into active federal service back in 2004 with the Korean Army's invasion of South Korea. A coalition of South Korea, the United States, and other United Nations members defeated the invasion and advanced into North Korea. The coalition fought and defeated two Chinese...
They had the music.
Have the rock band.
Oh yeah, they had the music to match everything. They had a country concert out of this.
Do you think they played "And I'm Proud to Be an
He was
American"?
there. He was there. Lee Greenwood was there, and he sang at the end.
There you go.
So it was a complete. It had fireworks, man. They had everything going.
The 10th Mountain Division's client...
I did not watch this clip. It's edited very poorly. just giving you a sense of what you saw there.
Yeah, that's probably.
It
enough.
certainly was not, as Democrats claimed it would be, like something you'd see in North Korea for dear leader, you know, or Russia for that matter. I mean,
that in itself is not necessarily bad. Like everyone has propaganda. Everyone has, state displays of strength and like all that kind of stuff. I mean, America's done it throughout its whole history. Every country does it. So that in itself is not necessarily a problem. I don't know. I mean, the clips I saw, it just seemed kind of underwhelming maybe a little bit, but
yeah, you needed to see it more in context.
Yeah.
Because I was ready to turn it off because, again, I hate parades.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. And,
but I get it. I mean, I grew up like an air show kid.
Mm-hmm.
We had a naval air station, NASJRB Willow Grove in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, like less than a mile from my house growing up. And they used to have air shows every year with, the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds. And they would have the thing where they would do like the demonstration, like the mock thing where there's like troops on the ground and they pop smoke and they need to be rescued, and like the chopper comes down and picks them up. And then the A-10 comes through and does the zzz, and they like have bombs in the field and stuff. So cool.
Yeah.
I want more explosions, basically, is what I'm getting at.
The recruitment for the Army, by the way, they made their goal already for the year. Why do you think people want to sign up for the Army now? They're clamoring to get in.
Is that true?
That is true.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think there's a restoration of patriotism, and that's not bad.
Yeah, I wonder what direction that's going to go now that there's a looming war with Iran. Well, if that's going to go back down again.
We'll see. So we still don't have a king. We have a president, Donald Trump. And, the media asked him about that, and I thought he had a great answer.
Got to pull it up. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. And 3, 2, 1.
There are several No Kings protests planned across the country on Saturday as well. What are your thoughts on those?
What do they go? No Kings?
No Kings.
I don't feel like a king. I have to go through hell to get stuff approved. A king would say, I'm not going to get this. A king would have never had the California mandate to even be talking to him.
I'm not going to get this.
He wouldn't have to call up Mike Johnson and Thune and say, fellas, you got to pull this off, and after years we get it done. No, we're not a king. We're not a king at all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there you go.
Also referring to himself in the third person with we.
Yeah.
It's like classic Trump.
That is classic Trump.
But let me see if I can find this.
Find the other thing. Because I want to talk about this for a second while you're looking for it. The mandate that he mentions in there was the California EV mandate, which was done through a special dispensation in Congress. They had a special dispensation that they could do this. Okay, that has now been removed by the Congress. So no EV mandate for 2035 in California. Now, what does California do? What's their response? They're suing to keep it because that's what dictatorships do. They force you to buy things you don't want. I mean, how are they not dictators, right? We don't want an EV. Too bad. You got to have an EV. I want to cook on a gas stove. Too bad. You got to cook on an electric stove. My dishwasher won't clean my dishes. Too bad. We're limiting what water you use. I mean, that's heavy-handed dictatorship. I don't think that's what we're going through right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I was kind of half listening there because I'm trying to find this clip, but I don't know if you mentioned COVID, but I mean, that was the biggest.
Oh, yeah, COVID. You can't go anywhere. And that's where you get into oligarchy, because oligarchs are a small group of people who control everything, and they get to do all the fun stuff while the little people can't. And I always remember a couple of images, and that's Gavin Newsom basically saying you can't go anywhere during COVID. And then they had pictures of him at the French Laundry, which is apparently not a laundromat. It's a really fancy restaurant. Who knew? And then closer to home, you had the Pharaoh, Quentin Lucas I, who basically said the same thing in Kansas City, and they had pictures of him in big groups of parties down at Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah.
Do what I say, not as I do. That, my friends, is the definition of an oligarchy. A small group of people live as I say, not as I do. Did you find it?
I did. He's avoiding saying the E word.
Have a good, they call it a lifting. They also use another word, but I'm not going to use that word. The word, it starts with an E. You know what the word is? If I ever used it, I'd be run out of town by you people. All right, so enjoy it. Duck, you're going to get some good. He's going to win another Nobel Prize, I think, for this picture. So maybe the flag will be even more exciting, but this is pretty exciting. That's some equipment, I'll tell you what. Look at that crane.
Look at that crane.
He's such a bullshitter, you know. He just like imagine just being one of these guys, like one of these construction workers.
Yeah.
And like, you know, Trump's just coming up to you and like, so tell me about these. That's a pretty big crane. How do you work that? You know, this guy, he looks like a real loser. Am I right?
Did you see the part of the deal where he said, "Any of you illegals?"
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
Classic Trump.
Funny.
Okay, so
yeah. I mean, we're on the precipice of World War III, and Trump has the biggest decision of his life to make. But at least he's still making cracking jokes. So.
Yeah. So back to the king thing. All right. The left did at one point bow down to one of their own. Do you remember Barack Obama? There were celebrities out there who pledged to Barack Obama, not to the flag of the United States of America.
Yep, I have that right here. Rapid fire on the clips, but I'm doing my best here.
I pledge
to be a servant to our president
and all mankind. Because together we can, together we are, and together we will be the change that we seek.
Nearly 4
keep going.
Okay.
This is
4 years ago, America's best and brightest celebrities bravely pledged to serve the most powerful man on the planet, Barack Obama. With the 2012 election upon us, we decided to check in on how they're doing with their pledges.
I pledge to turn the lights off, because I used to leave the lights on, but we want to conserve energy, so I'm going to turn the lights off, you turn the lights
I'm going to turn the lights off, but I'm going to keep the cameras on.
I'll call him back when his plane lands.
I pledge to sell my obnoxious car and buy a hybrid.
I hope you sold that obnoxious hat, too.
I pledge. I pledge.
To always represent my country with pride, dignity, and honesty.
He seems really torn between dignity and honesty.
I pledge to be of service to Barack Obama.
I've always pledged to serve my William Howard
That guy
Taft.
sucks. I love that band, but he sucks, unfortunately.
The environment, I pledge to flush only after a deuce, never a single.
That's pretty
Because
funny.
together we can.
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
That's one of those things. It's like, you know, I mean, we've all had these moments. None of us are impervious to cringe or to saying stupid things that we regret later. But like looking back on that, imagine being like Ashton Kutcher, looking back on that 20 years later or however long it's been. And you're like, oof.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they say that, and what I tell people on the left is, you think we love him as much as you hate him. Mm-hmm. And they hate Donald Trump. I don't think we love him that much.
No.
It's like, you know, make the right decision. We hired you to do a job. We want you to get all the illegals out of the country. And the left is like, my God, he's doing what he said he was going to do. Yeah. We hate this guy. But we're not pledging. I'm not going to kiss my biceps, as limited as they are, you know, and call them Donald and Trump.
Yeah.
Will you?
No. I don't really have big biceps anyways, so that's not going to work.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a good representation of the MAGA movement.
You want a good representation of your neighborhood? You got to have a good roof. And I've seen so many pictures that Austin Watterson and his company have put up. He's at Royal Roofing and Solar, roofedbyroyal.com. And you see some of the nastiest roofs that are up. And people who basically needed a new roof, they had storm damage or whatever, and the shysters drive through the neighborhood and they say, hey, I noticed your roof's a little banged up there. I bet I can get you a free roof with your insurance company. I bought into that scam one time. Never again. The roof on my house, the forever roof on my house, was put on by Austin Watterson and Royal Roofing and Solar. And we have had a lot of storms. Get him up on your roof. He'll shoot you straight. And then in the end, if you're not satisfied with anything, you want to be able to call the owner of the company. He's a dear friend of mine. If I got any kind of a problem, I'm going to reach out to him. I want to know the owner of the company. It's Austin Watterson and Royal Roofing and Solar. 816-540-7057. 816-540-7057. roofedbyroyal.com. I mean, your house is your biggest investment. I know that in the palatial studios here in Raytown, where we do the podcast now, you're working your ass off to make this your forever home.
Yeah, we got some projects.
Yep.
We got some projects.
And that'll continue the entire time you own this house. Trust me on that. Okay, save the date. Next Wednesday, June 25th, we're going to be at Fun House Pizza. It's not an official podcast thing. This is something Jim Dingman is doing, and I love it. In fact, my tummy just growled thinking about it because he's going to do an old-fashioned pizza social from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. He's going to set up their fireworks tent out there. It coincides with Pizza with a Policeman. So they're going to be honoring the Lee's Summit Police Department. You can come shake hands with a hero. I know our crowd, we don't throw rocks at the police. We shake their hand and thank them for their service to keep us safe on the home front. So you can do that. He doesn't want to go on the podcast or on air or whatever and say, free food, because there will be a line all the way out to 470 if we give away that pizza for free. But wink, wink to our podcast friends, you're going to eat for free. Come on, right? There's going to be plenty of pizza.
You said it.
Everybody's. It's going to be like, Jesus and the loaves and the fishes, right? There may be one pizza, but it's going to multiply, right? We're going to take care of you. 5 to 7, come there. I'm going to be there. I want to shake your hand and thank you for being part of the podcast. Shake Jim's hand. And I want to shake hands with a Lee's Summit police officer, because I want to thank them for their service. Funhouse Pizza, 2 locations, 50 Highway, Lee's Summit, and they're also at 7 Highway in Blue Springs. Jim Dingman, a wonderful, fine American, and one of the sponsors of this podcast. Another sponsor that we have is Midwest GI, Dr. Mark Taramina, and occasionally, hasn't happened for a long time, we give out an award that we call the Full of Shit Award.
You're full of shit.
All right, thank you.
Now shush.
You are speaking shit to me.
You full of shit. You understand that? You full of shit.
Yeah. The Full of Shit Award is presented by Dr. Mark Taramina at Midwest GI Health and Wellness. And I mean, that's a guy. He's got, doing what he does with colonoscopies, he's got the entire face guard on, right? You can't imagine what comes out in that room.
He's getting sprayed with.
I don't even want to think about it. And I've been in that room, right? Because you do the prep to get the colonoscopy and all that, which is really important. We make light of it. We joke about it. But 45 is the new 50. And Dr. Mark Taramina has been saving lives. We've saved lives on this podcast because many of you have gone to Dr. Mark Taramina to get your colonoscopy. And one guy in particular, I mean, we literally saved his life. Because he was in some serious danger. And now he's doing a lot better because of the work of Dr. Mark Taramina and Midwest GI Health and Wellness. Get scheduled, okay? You don't even have to go through your regular doctor. Just get on the board. Lee's Summit is where he does everything, one-stop shopping there. It's like, they're landing jets. I mean, when I had my colonoscopy, there were like 15 in front of me, and it was like, just move this guy, move that guy, move that guy. And I got mine. I got a great report back. No polyps. That's what you want to hear. But if you have polyps, let's get those things biopsied and make sure that you're going to be okay in the long run, because colon cancer is something that if you let it fester, will kill you in the long run. That's why this could be the most important phone number you have. 816-836-2200 on the web at midwestgihealth.com. And when you make that appointment, make sure you tell Dr. Taramina that you heard about him here on the podcast. Okay, the Full of Shit Award we're giving is for Senator Alex Padilla from California. Don't know who he is. Nobody knows who he is. He was not elected to the role. He was appointed by the governor to fill Dianne Feinstein's seat when she died.
So he's a federal senator, not a state senator?
No, he's a federal senator, U.S. senator. But he wasn't elected. He was appointed. So Kristi Noem is giving a briefing out in California about what's going on, right? If you were a U.S. senator, right, and you wanted to talk to the Homeland Security Director, how would you best go about that? Do you know?
Probably make an appointment.
Yeah. You call him up and you say, hey, I'm Senator such and such, and I want to talk to the secretary.
Yeah.
Do you think they deny that?
They would be silly to, because then you would have fodder to use against them. I
they
mean,
don't
you could
deny
come out
it.
and put out a press release
Right.
and say they denied my request and make a bunch of noise. And
so this guy decides to go into the briefing And then he pushes back when they try and remove him, and then he's restrained. By the way, the video that we're going to show you was shot by his office. So get ready to give out an Academy Award.
Guys, ready? And bell. Sir, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your hands off.
How many of our ICE agents have been docked?
On the ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go, I put behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here. I did not know. There's no recording allowed out here per guy, right? For the building. So what? I'm sorry. There's no recording allowed out here. That's my boss. There's no recording allowed out here. You can record. There's no.
I feel like it's kind of like, you know how rappers, they'll like get arrested and get like a mugshot to get street cred. It's kind of like that for senators.
He's got his cred now. You know, everybody on Capitol Hill was losing their mind. Elizabeth Warren, I can't believe this happened. And he's not alone. There are guys on the left, mayoral candidates in New York. They're trying to get arrested. They're trying to push the envelope to get arrested. This was definitely a show designed to get the reaction that it got. But let me remind you, in an environment where a man dresses as a cop and shoots politicians who are on a hit list, caution is the order of the day. Secretaries, the president, senators, House members, they have security, and they surround them, and they look at anybody that could be a threat and take them down. And this guy, who is the least recognizable senator in the United States Senate, was coming at her in a threatening way. Of course, they're going to take him down.
Yeah, and I mean, regardless, there's decorum and expectations here. I mean, you don't just get to barge into a meeting and demand to have it run the way that you want it to. I mean, you're going to face pushback. You know, you should expect that at least.
Right.
If you want to make a show of it, okay, you can make a show of it. You know, you have your position, they have theirs, and that's perfectly fine. But like, obviously, if you just go in and you try and blow up the whole meeting, not literally, but then there's going to be a problem. So,
well, you know, and in my mind, you know, imagine Ted Cruz back in the day rushing Alejandro Mayorkas in the same way. Mm-hmm. What would Elizabeth Warren have said about that? Oh, I can't believe he did that. Any senator can get a private briefing. That's my point. And Alex Padilla, you are full of shit. We move along here. Thank Bob Watson again for being part of the podcast, and remind you that if you hadn't gotten a rate quote, you should get it from State Farm, and the best State Farm agent in the Kansas City Metro is my State Farm agent, and that's Bob Watson, licensed in both Missouri and Kansas. Bundle your home and car insurance and save even more. If it's important enough for you to insure, you need the absolute best, who's going to be there at the time that you need to use the insurance. That's the test of any insurance. Auto, home, life, commercial insurance. You're taking the pontoon boat out this weekend. It's going to be nice weather for it. Make sure it's got insurance through Bob Watson State Farm. All right, 816-229-7878. Our old friend Billy Long is in the news. We'll leave you with this. The former Missouri congressman who ran for the Senate, definite friend of Donald Trump. Trump has appointed Long IRS commissioner. How about that? We know the IRS commissioner.
Small world, huh?
Is that going to get us anywhere? What do you think?
I don't know. You might have to hit him up and ask.
He was confirmed along party lines in the Senate. He even got the vote of Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt. This tells you that politics has a very short memory, right? Because Eric Schmitt was referred to as being scared Schmittless by our friend Billy Long, because he wouldn't debate him. Billy's also an auctioneer, so we leave you with this clip. Who can forget Billy Long turning a protest into an auction?
Because Jack Dorsey is trying to influence the election, to sway the election.
What's she saying? I can't understand her.
I can't understand her.
That is why he's censoring and shadow banning
How about it then? 12 and a half, 15, 7 and a half, $20, 2 and a half, 5, 7 and a half, 30. Hit $30 down here, 2 and a half, 5, 35, 7 and a half, 40. Hit $40, 2 and a half, 5, 45, 7 and a half, 50. Hit $50 down here, 2 and a half.
Officer, will you escort this young lady out, please?
Hit 2 and a half now, 5, 65, 7 and a half, 70. What, 2 and a half now, 5, 75, 7 and a half, $80 to 5, 85, 90. Hit $100 and 10, 10, 10 and a quarter, 1 and a quarter, 1 and a half, and about 2, 2 and a quarter. Hit 2 and a half, and about 3, able to bomb 300. Hit 3 and a quarter. Hit 3 and a quarter now, half, 3 and a half, and about 400. Hit but a 4, 4 and a quarter, 4 and a half. We're selling the cell phone there, 4 and a quarter, 4 and a half. Hit 4 and a half, 475, 500, 5 and a quarter, 5 and a half. I yield back.
Yeah, I yield back. Got a great response out of the crowd there. I love that guy. He was an interesting interview, though. I interviewed him for the podcast when he was running for the Senate. I asked him one question, and he went on for 8 minutes.
Yep.
And I said, you should be a senator because you got the filibuster down, my friend. I think he might have been offended by that. Oh, well. Well, next week we should know more about what's going on in the world. So I think prayer is the order of the day.
Amen.
Pray for our president, pray for our troops, pray for our world, because they all need to hear you. Until next week, this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.